It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
Welcome in to a Monday on the Sports Blitz. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had a good weekend. I know I did, watching a whole lot of football. Mark Freeman, Maddie Lassiter inside the Cogswell Motors studio. Glad to be bringing you the latest in sports. They had a good weekend, like we said. The only bad part, Maddie, was that the Dallas Cowboys let me down yesterday against Kansas City. Kansas City was 2-14 last year. You shouldn't lose to them. The end. I don't care if they got a new coach, new quarterback, new everything. They were 2-14. You should beat them. They lost 17-16, but that was the only downside to an otherwise pretty good weekend. The Razorbacks got a win. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about my takeaways from the NFL season or the NFL week, and as well as college football. Alabama A&M did not disappoint. We talked a lot about that game, and I was right and wrong about that game. I have to admit, there are a couple things that I want to bring out today about that game. Johnny Manziel, man, guy's incredible. I don't like anything he does, anything he stands for off the field, but on the field, you watch him play, he is a wizard. Well, we'll get to that here in a little bit. We're going to start, though, with our Peters Family Living local sports look. Today, we're going to look at high school football because Friday night was just an incredible night for the teams that we cover in this area. There are 10 teams that we cover in this area, and 9 of them won on Friday night. I've never seen anything like that, but since they were playing each other last week in a couple of rivalry games, somebody had to lose. But in Friday night's action, 9 of them won against other teams from around the state. Most of them had favorable matchups. I was at Clarksville Friday night for my alma mater playing Ozark in a big rivalry game, and the fact that my 10-year reunion was going on was just an excuse to get over there and watch the Panthers play. They got a win over Ozark, 20-12. Congratulations to the Panthers. But we've got on the line right now, we are glad to be joined by the head coach of the Russellville Cyclones, 2-0 early on in the season. We got Jeff Holt on the line. Coach Holt, how are you doing today?
Oh, we're doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. Like I said, 9 teams in our area win Friday night. That is a win for us because we get to come in here and talk happy things today.
You bet. That's there's good football in the River Valley, and it's fun to watch everybody around the River Valley have success.
Oh, it definitely is. And speaking of success, you guys 2-0 on the year, 43-28 win on the first week of the year against Morrilton, and a 45-23 win Friday night against Siloam Springs. Looks like that offense is going pretty well right now.
Well, we are. We're a little slow starting the last 2 ball games, but it's fun once we get it in gear. Then it's kind of a fast-paced, fast-paced offense that we can kind of get our guys in open spaces, and the guys that we have can really do some special things with the football.
Well, it's from what it seems statistically. Now, I was at the Morrilton game, and I just saw the stats from the Siloam Springs game. 436 yards and 5 touchdowns passing for Cody Jones. He's on that, and I hesitate to say this because this is a big name, but he's on a Landon Leach pace as far as numbers go. Talk about the performance you've had from him so far.
Well, he's had two very good football games. He's growing up as a quarterback, and fortunately last year he was able to get some experience, and this year he's carried on with that experience, and he feels very comfortable out there. He knows our offense extremely well, and fortunately he's got a lot of good guys to throw the football to, and that's been extremely beneficial for us.
Well, talk about the skill position guys you've got. I watched Cochise Temple Laws at Morrilton. I think the first touchdown was just a bomb to him, and he looked incredible. And then he had another big game Friday night. And then Jalen Curtis, who's on everybody's radar as a wide receiver recruit. And then you've got guys like Kentrell Scott and Tony Jones that are also there. Cody's not got a bare cupboard of skill players either, does he?
No, he's got quite a few options. Obviously Jalen's had 2 really good football games back-to-back. And, Cochise is his second year, and, he's really comfortable with his position and doing what he does. And, we've added Tony Jones, to the lineup, and obviously we had Kentrell last year. The key, really, to right now is our inside guy with Drew. I mean, he's able to handle anybody on the perimeter. You know, if you've watched us at all when we're throwing our screens, he's handled anybody out there. I mean, he had a big, huge block to score our first touchdown when Coach East went about 80 yards on the first screen pass, and you know, eventually those teams are going to have to try to defend those outside guys, and it's going to open up the middle for us with Drew, and so we've been fortunate. You know, we've been able to throw it and catch it pretty well early, and you know, late in the ball game we've been able to run the football. So you know, that's got to continue, and you know, hopefully we'll get better at each phase.
Well, I know I talked to a couple of college, just some scouts and some guys that follow recruiting, and they said that probably the best, I don't want to say the best idea right now as far as who's going to be highly recruited was Drew Smith, and you mentioned the ability that he has to play not only in the passing game but also in blocking. He's, like you said, he's proved to be a valuable asset for your team. For those that haven't seen Drew Smith play, what kind of a tight end, you know, if you could compare him, I know he's not a professional, he's in high school, but if you could compare him to a guy that they've seen in the NFL, who would you compare him to? He reminds me sort of a Gronk type guy. He'll stretch the field on you.
Yeah, he's more, I'm kind of an older school guy. If you've watched Dallas Clark, he's kind of at the end of his career now, but when he was with Peyton Manning, and you know, he could split out. He could be a true tight end. You know, Drew can run great routes. He can catch a football. But what's really helped us this year is now he can get in there and block the zone. You know, with a receiver, you know, you can only affect the game really about 6-8 times a game when you're catching it and so forth. But as a tight end, you know, he's got a chance to affect every play. So, you know, that it's nice to have a guy like that. And he's really bought into that position.
Well, so far in the early season, you've got a win at Morrilton. You've got Siloam Springs. You beat Friday night. You've got Alma coming in to town this week before you start into the real meat of the schedule, traveling to Conway next week. Talk about real quickly, you know, Conway in 2 weeks, that's a big rivalry game. You know, both teams hate one another. How do you keep your guys, you know, looking at Alma instead of looking ahead to Conway?
Well, all you got to do is watch film of the last 3 ball games against Alma. I mean, we've played absolutely awful 3 years in a row against Alma, and you know that's got to change. Alma's a tradition-rich program. They play excellent football. Coach Lockridge is in his first year there. We know what kind of football coach he is, and if we don't play well, the same thing will happen to us. So. You know, Alma has our attention. We've got to play much better football than we've played in the past against them, and you know, we've got to settle down this week and, you know, fix our errors and get ready to play a good football team.
Well, as you mentioned, Alma has been I don't want to call it a stumbling block, because a couple of years ago I remember watching that game. You guys got a big win. It was a fun one to watch. But leading into the conference season, you've got a big game against the Airedales this Friday night. But then you've got the conference schedule. What were your preseason goals for the conference and for your team this year? What were you hoping to accomplish preseason?
Well, you wanted to get off to a good start and win. That's always, you know, something that you want to do, but that's not the most important thing. You know, those first 3 ball games are really, for us, practice games getting into conference. And, you know, we wanted to make sure that we had our personnel where we needed it, and we need to make sure that we're executing both offensively and defensively. We've still got things that we have to fix if we're going to compete in a tough conference like the Central. And so we've been okay so far, but there's several areas that we've got to get better in.
Well, I'm looking at your schedule. Okay, never mind. I was looking at Max Preps here, and it says you've got Fort Smith Northside on the 4th of October, and then it says you've got the Fort Smith Patriots. I think that's a little off there, because I think they're talking about the Parkview Patriots, I guess, the next week. Well, it looks like your schedule sets up. I don't want to say it's definitely not an easy schedule, but you don't have too many of those 2- and 3-game road stretches again. You've got 2 games at home in a row here, and then you've traveled to Conway. You've got 2 more home games, and then it's home and away, rotating for the rest of the schedule. schedule. You've got Greenwood at the end of the season. I know that it's looking ahead a long ways, but how confident are you in your ability to compete for a conference championship?
Well, I mean, we've got a long ways to go to do that, and our team knows that. We want to compete for a conference championship, but in this day and age of high school football, I mean, a lot of people will think I'm crazy, but that's kind of not the most important thing. Being a split conference, 7A, 6A, we're trying to get ready for a big playoff run, and if a conference championship comes with that, we're excited about it. But we understand what type of situation we're in. We just got to continue to get better each week, and the conference stuff will take care of itself.
Well, I hadn't looked at the 6A, but for those that don't know, the 7A, 6A, those teams will play each other in conference, and then they'll split up. The 7A will play a state playoffs, the 6A will play a state playoffs, and Russellville will be in the 6A state football playoffs. And so they'll get may even be a completely different tournament as far as teams that they have to play than what they had in conference schedule. So it's going to be an interesting rest of the season for the Cyclones. Looking forward to watching them play this week against Alma. It's going to be a fun one. I'll be out there at Cyclone Stadium. We gave away a couple tickets to watch the Cyclones for the whole season, so that's going to be a cool deal for a couple people who are able to win those. Coach Holt, before we get you out of here, I want your thoughts on the Razorbacks. Got a win on Saturday against Southern Miss. Now they got Rutgers coming up. What do you expect from the Razorbacks this year?
Well, they've got a tough road ahead. I just got a picture of their schedule on TV the other day, and they got some tough matchups ahead of them. It's great that they took care of the teams that really they should be taking care of. You always want to win those ones that you're expected to win, and now if they can just surprise one or two of these top-notch teams in the SEC, then they'll consider themselves having a great year.
And speaking of top-notch teams in the SEC, Johnny Football, how cool would it be to have a Johnny Football playing quarterback for you at Russellville High School?
Yeah, I would have hated to try to defend that guy in high school. I mean, he's definitely in between the lines. He's a special player.
Well, he is incredible. Well, Coach Holt, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We'll have you back on in the near future to talk about hopefully some more wins.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. That's Coach Jeff Holt, Russellville High School, and the Cyclones 2-0 early in the season. We appreciate his time today, and we thank him for coming on as we do with all of our guests. As we mentioned, there were 9 teams from this area who won Friday night. The Pottsville Apaches won 41-6 against Fountain Lake. Another big game for Michael Perry at the quarterback position. He also had an interception at safety and ran it back for a touchdown. So it was the Michael Perry show on Friday night in Pottsville. Atkins with a 51-20 win over Bigelow. Another big one for the Atkins Red Devils. Dardanelle won 52-41 over Mayflower, and Jason Kilburn sent me in some information. He said that Dardanelle's big-time quarterback broke his arm. I don't know if he broke it in the game or if he broke it before, but Jason said they played with the sophomore quarterback in that game. I'll have to check to make sure. I've got a request in to Coach Price just asking him if that's what happened or when it happened, and so Dardanelle may have to change some things up, but they won 52-41 against one of the best teams in Mayflower in the 3A. So Dardanelle's looking to make a run on Pottsville there in the 4A4 football conference. Like I mentioned, Clarksville got a 20-12 win over Ozark. Congratulations to my Panthers getting that win. It was an emotional night, man. Watching the guys when they scored, when they made a big play, it was incredible because they knew this is Ozark, and these people in the stands hate them, and they may not understand it because they hadn't been there that long, and they haven't played Ozark every year, kind of like we did growing up. But they knew, they understood. There was an atmosphere there. Danville 21-6 win over Mineral Springs Lamar. Shout out to the Warriors 2-0, 46-7 win over 4A Subiaco Academy. Hector with a 28-14 win over Hackett. Two Rivers with a 20-6 win over Poen. And the only team who fell still put up a valiant effort. Dover falls 55-40 to Arkansas Baptist. Also, the Arkansas Tech Wonder Boys fall to 1-1, lose their home opener 28-17. But they were in the game the whole time, so they had a shot at it there. Arkansas Tech is going to have a pretty decent season here under Raymond Monica to start off his regime. We've got plenty more football to cover here in just a moment. We'll talk about Johnny Football. We got Coach Holt's thoughts on him, how hard it would be to defend him. Nick Saban didn't have a much easier time defending him this Saturday.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KARK4 today.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Coach Jeff Holt of the Russellville Cyclones. If you didn't catch that and you're just joining right now, you can watch the replay later today. This is the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Thank you for joining us at RiverValleyLeader.com. We're here in the Cogswell Motors studio. Mark Freeman in an empty chair, but we've got Maddie Lassiter, Emily Young over here, just producing their hearts away here in the studio. We appreciate you joining us today. Man, I was a little bit right and wrong about this Texas A&M Alabama game. I said, and I quote myself, that if A&M hoped to have a chance, I said it was going to be a 17-plus game. I said if A&M was going to have a chance, they were going to have to get out to an early lead. They were going to have to start fast. 14-0. 2 drives into the game, I thought, well, crap, Mark. Look what you've done. You just got exactly what you said needed to happen. When I picked Alabama to win the national championship, so obviously I was rooting for them. And Texas A&M, with all the Johnny football drama of the past several months, I just wanted bad things to happen to him. I really almost tweeted a couple times, I hope he looks out his ear hole this play, because I really hope somebody just twisted his head off. But long story short, Alabama comes back, scores 35 consecutive points to take a 35-14 lead. It was 21-0 or 14-0 and then 21-14 like that. They ran the flea flicker. They ran incredibly good passing offense in the first half. Johnny Manziel ended up throwing for 464 yards, but A.J. McCarron had 300 almost in the first half. Ends up 20 of 29 for 334 and 4 touchdowns. Manziel, in a losing effort and trying to come back, was 28 of 39 for 464 and 5 touchdowns. He actually threw 6 touchdowns, because he threw 5 to his own team and 1 to Alabama. He threw one that it's just Johnny football. It's the way he does. He goes crazy in the backfield, running away from 12 tacklers, and then throws one up. And Evans catches one of them, and then the next one hits an Alabama defender in the back of the head. Bounces up in the air. Vinny Sunseri 6. So Johnny Manziel was all over the place. He actually had 98 yards rushing too. So he had a better game this year than he did last year in that game against Alabama. But long story short, Alabama came back and took the lead, went ahead and they were up 21 points 2 different times in the game. So to me, the game wasn't really as close as the final score indicated because Alabama did what they did to run out the clock. They weren't trying to necessarily go ahead and score 60 points like they could have. They really could have, but they tried their best to just milk the clock, and it came back to bite them because in the third quarter, when they go up 35-14, A&M comes back down and scores to make it 35-21. Alabama runs it down the field in about 5 minutes and scores another touchdown. So that you milk 5 minutes off the clock, you've done pretty well. And so with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, it's 42-21. You turn around and 13 minutes and 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter, so about another 7 minutes on the clock. Alabama gives up a touchdown to A&M. They're up 14. Alabama runs all the way down the field, takes up just a ton of time, at least 4.5 minutes, and get to the 1 yard line with a chance to go up 21 points. And I don't want to necessarily blame Yeldon for the fumble because he did fumble, but he was hit by 2 guys immediately upon receiving the ball. He takes one step at the 1 yard line, gets hit by 2 guys, fumbles the football. A&M recovers it, third down and 5, or third down and whatever, 6 from the 5 yard line. A 95-yard bomb to Mike Evans, who ended up on the day with, 7 catches for 279 yards and a touchdown. He had a 95-yard touchdown there. He averaged 40 yards per catch. Just let that sink in for a second. That's what Johnny Football did on Saturday to really have any success at all. It was, Hut, go as far as you can. I'm just going to throw it up. And I will have to give him credit because, like I said, I was wrong in a couple different predictions. I said that Alabama would shut him down. They did give up 98 yards rushing to him, and that is something you sort of have to curtail if you're Alabama. That's one of the things that they wanted to do is keep him in the pocket. But when they want to keep him in the pocket, the goal was to keep him from shredding them through the air too. They didn't want him to shred them with his legs and be out in space, but they also didn't want him to throw for 460 yards. They thought their cornerbacks could play a whole lot better than they did. Their cornerbacks were just getting smoked. I won't even say their names because they're probably in the witness protection program today. But Alabama's secondary just got absolutely obliterated. Vinny Sunseri had that pick 6, and Clinton Dix almost got himself tossed from the game for just a great hit, a great tackle where, it's one of those things where a guy kind of shudders and your helmet touches his helmet, but there was a pass that was in the air, and Clinton Dix is going after it, and he tries to catch the ball, and their helmets touch, and they called him for targeting and ejected him. And then they go back to review it, and they say, okay, it wasn't targeting, he's not ejected, but there is still a 15-yard penalty. So it's like there's a penalty, but there's no penalty. It was retarded. I didn't like the way that the NCAA had done the whole targeting rule, and definitely didn't like the way the officials had sort of run the rule. I don't know. The way they have called the games with this targeting rule has just been kind of stupid to me. But long story short, Alabama comes out ahead as they go up 42. That long touchdown made it 42-35. Alabama goes down the field in 6 minutes and scores again. And with 15 seconds left in the game, Alabama had been in the prevent defense, and A&M scores a touchdown and can't get the onside kick. Alabama escapes with a 7-point win, but the game was nowhere near that close in my opinion. I did see some chinks in the Alabama armor. The only problem is the only team that could really exploit those chinks was Texas A&M. Now, the only team that can exploit the fact that, okay, if you run around for 10 seconds and then throw it, you can have some success on Alabama's defense. There's only one guy who can do that in the world, and he's the Heisman Trophy winner, and he just lost. So, Johnny Manziel, I have to give him a lot of credit. There were some times where he'd hit that hole between the corner and the safety with a perfect rocket to Evans or to somebody else, and it was really nice. I have to give it to him. But he still makes some of the most stupid decisions at times when he's just running around trying to get away from people. It's kind of like Michael Vick, except for Manziel's much more accurate than Vick. But he would just run around forever and then just throw one up in the middle of the field, and Evans just went up and caught it. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. You can't reward this guy for that type of thing. Next possession, pick. That was returned for a touchdown. Earlier on, I think he had another one where he threw it up in the end zone, and I was like, thank you. It's about time that kind of stuff isn't rewarded from Johnny Manziel. But at the end of the day, 464 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think that someone will take that against most everybody because you're not going to get beat very often when you do that. A&M showed me a lot. They showed me that, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to be in Fayetteville in 2 weeks, and I don't think Arkansas's got a chance against Texas A&M. I thought for a little while that they might, because watching Texas A&M's defense the first 2 weeks, they couldn't stop anybody, and Arkansas, I figured, would just pound it down their throats. And Alabama did pound it down their throats, but they also threw for 300. Arkansas ain't throwing for 300 against A&M. They just don't have it with the quarterback issues that we'll talk about here in a little bit. You know, Brandon Allen getting hurt, bruised shoulder possibly. I don't know for sure if he's going to be in the game or not on Saturday against Rutgers, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. I don't think Arkansas has what it takes to take advantage of the A&M issues, and there is no way that if Alabama gives up 42 points, that Arkansas's got a chance to beat Texas A&M. I'm sorry to all of you that thought that Arkansas was going to beat Texas A&M. You're not. It's not going to happen. They may lose a game or two here on down the stretch, but they're not losing to Arkansas. I wish they did, and I'm going to be at the game. But I was going to be all gung-ho and happy if Arkansas was 4-0 coming into Razorback Stadium to take on A&M. I was going to think, this is possibly a ranked team against Texas A&M and Johnny Football, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. But in the end of the day, watching Texas A&M Saturday and watching Arkansas, it's apples to oranges really right now. The Arkansas style of play at some point will give Texas A&M type teams fits, and it may give Ole Miss fits. They're sort of similar in the way that they play the game right now, but Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel is just a different animal. Yeah, they're just too good right now for Arkansas to beat. I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong before.
Well, that's one thing is Alabama was not taken off guard by what Texas A&M did, and Texas A&M, even though, like you said, it wasn't as close as the score indicated, it really wasn't. It should have been a 3-touchdown game. Even so, 42 points. Alabama knew what was coming. They'd been studying the Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M tape all year, and they still got 42 points scored on them. So that doesn't bode well, like you said, for teams like Arkansas. You're thinking, we may have a good defense this year, but it's not going to be Alabama's defense.
No.
So and we don't have a great offense, even though we look to have a very, very good running game. So like you said, we're not going to pass for 300 yards. So that doesn't bode very well for that game.
The thing with Johnny Manziel is that he screws up your entire game plan. Because if he can get out of the pocket, which he can most anytime he wants, if he can get out and scramble, you have to cover forever if you're a cornerback. And then you have to, if you're a linebacker, you have to go try to make a tackle on the invisible man, and then you're out of position and somebody else goes behind you for a completion. If you're a safety and you have to try to, they have to have a spy of some sort on Johnny Manziel. Well, that's one person who can't be in coverage. And if they go 5 wide, you're at a disadvantage. You may have, numbers-wise, you may have an advantage if you play the dime with 6 defensive backs or something like that. But when you've got a guy like Johnny Manziel who's a wild card, you can't predict where he's going to be. Even he doesn't know where he's going to be. It's pretty hard to defend. So I feel like Texas A&M has got that going for them. Well, I know Texas A&M's got that going for them. And to me, Alabama winning that game on the road in College Station just told me all I needed to know about them. Now, there is a team. Now, I think Alabama's going to go undefeated the rest of this regular season. I don't see a team left on their schedule that can beat them. Ole Miss at home can possibly give them some trouble. And LSU on November the 9th. That's going to be the big one. If Alabama can beat LSU, now, and I've said before on Friday on the show that LSU is the only team that I had any worry about beating Alabama, because they run the same sort of thing that Alabama does, and they can go head-to-head with them stud for stud. They don't have to worry about, Alabama's got advantages over here and here and here and here and here. It's pretty much even as far as skill and just athleticism. They've got the 5-star guys that Alabama has, so it's not a big mismatch in that way. But I've picked Alabama to beat LSU, and especially since it's at home. LSU's not afraid of Alabama, and they're not going to shy away, but I've predicted that Alabama will win that game, and then they'll go on in. I think they'll play Georgia in the SEC championship game. If you watched that game last year, it was one of the games of the year. That'll be a tough one with Georgia being able to run the ball the way they do, and with by that time, the all-time leading passer in SEC history in Aaron Murray. Georgia's going to be a tough one for Alabama. So that'll be 3 incredibly tough games for Alabama. And then the number 2 team in the country, Oregon, looks like the Pac-12 is not much of anything. They're going to run through their schedule. Alabama's going to get another type, spread it out, run you to death type teams in Oregon. I've never seen Nick Saban in a game like the national championship game where his team cares, they want to be there, they're going to prepare. I've never seen his team show up and not be prepared to the hilt and just absolutely annihilate somebody. I've seen them play against Utah in the Sugar Bowl when they wanted to be in the national championship game and they didn't make it and they got beat. I saw them play a couple different times when they were disappointed in the game they were in. They didn't necessarily play well, but I have to believe that Nick Saban's team is going to be completely prepared for Oregon sometime down the stretch. Yes, I'm predicting the national championship game right now in week 3, but I'm very, very intrigued by the way Oregon has played so far in the season. For Old School Baller, who called in on Friday and told us that Tennessee was going to beat Oregon, we'll give you a mulligan on that one because they got destroyed on Saturday by Oregon. Oregon just has looked incredible so far. They're not going to lose a game in the Sissy 12, and they're going to come through to the national championship game. In my opinion, they're going to play Alabama. It's pretty well cut and dried unless something crazy happens to one of those 2 teams between now and then, that those are the 2 best teams in the country. I am just absolutely looking forward to the rest of the college football season to see how this shakes out. But I'm not a betting man, but if I were a betting man, I would go Alabama-Oregon for the national championship game, and it's going to be fun to see how those 2 teams sort of go toward one another. It's just like Alabama-LSU a couple of years ago in that big game that LSU won 9-6. It was, you could see that the 2 were on pace to just collide, and that when they did, it was incredible. And now we've still got November 9th where LSU and Alabama will play again, so that's going to be a big game, but I'm going on record now and saying Alabama-Oregon. I had Alabama-Ohio State, but with the Braxton Miller injury and the fact that Ohio State plays nobody, they're not going to be able to jump back over Oregon, and Oregon will play in the national championship game. But anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I think Jason Kilburn's going to call in, but if not, we'll look at the NFL and my takeaways. I've got several. My Dallas Cowboys aren't very good. I'll just go ahead and say that. Peyton Manning is, though, so I'll just continue to root for the Broncos.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
Welcome back to the Sports Blitz. It's Monday, so it's time to recap the weekend in football. We've already looked at high school and a little bit of college. Didn't talk a whole lot about the other games that took place on the college football slate, but really there weren't a whole lot of great games on the college football docket this last week. Ohio State won 52-34 over Cal. We mentioned that 59-14 Oregon beat down in Tennessee. South Carolina beat Vanderbilt 35-25. That one was a close one. And then there was one more game that I was really interested in. It was the number 25 team in the country. They're from Ole Miss, and they beat, who was that, Jason, that they beat 44-23?
Oh, maybe some team from the South, maybe Texas, was that it?
Maybe the Fighting Mac Browns of Texas. This is Jason Kilburn on the line with us. And, Jason, I don't know if you're as happy as I am, but anytime Texas gets beat, it's a good day. The only bad thing about this is it might bring about the end of Mac Brown when I was hoping he'd be there forever.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, we talked about that on Friday, and if his seat's not warm, it's got to be hot now. You know, for Ole Miss to come down there and beat them the way they did, you know, Ole Miss jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Texas came back, took the lead 21-14, and then I don't think Texas scored any in the second half. So I'm wondering which coordinator is probably going to get fired today.
Yeah, for real. With Mac Brown, he said after the game, from what I've read in a transcript, don't come out. He said, forget the coaches. Come out and watch the players. He said, come out for the kids. In other words, the coaches, they're toast. We're all toast. He knows it. It's sort of one of those Houston Nutt things where he knew he was done. His last season at the end, he was just like, it's all over. I'm going to have me some golden handcuffs taken off here in a little bit, and I'm going to go to Ole Miss. He knew it was all over. He said, come out for the kids. We just they love this university. They love that helmet, Jason. They're here for the Razorbacks. And I think Mac Brown's sort of in that same mode right now where he knows his time is almost up there in Texas, and I couldn't be any happier that Texas. Like, I listened to Clay Henry, who he was on a statewide show, and he said, nothing does my heart better than for Texas to suck. And I could not agree more.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, well, speaking of Texas and sucking, the Dallas Cowboys, my favorite football team, got beat 17-16 yesterday by the Kansas City Chiefs, who went 2-14 last year. Now, I know Andy Reid is in to change the mentality for the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Alex Smith, the one and only all-time great former number one quarterback, he's not that good, guys, is now there at quarterback he was the leading rusher for Kansas City, by the way, 8 carries for 57 yards. But Kansas City, my point is, I know they had a lot of injuries last year. They were definitely banged up, and they weren't as bad as 2-14. But Dallas, if you hope to win the NFC East, on a day when the Giants lose, the Eagles lose, and the Redskins lose, you hope to win the NFC East and go to 2-0. You can't lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, Jason.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I really can't hope that they're winning. But for your sake, I guess they do. But yeah, with those other teams losing, you've got to win there. You know, there's too much. Those teams in that division are almost too equal. You know, everybody's good. Everybody's pretty good. Everybody's a good up and coming team like the Redskins. But yeah, for those other teams to lose, they had to have won that game yesterday. And you know, I sent you a text message yesterday that said Tony Romo is the highest rated fourth quarter quarterback in NFL history. He didn't play like it yesterday. He was making some horrible throws, and I don't know if it was his ribs that were hurting him or whatnot.
There's no excuse.
He wasn't playing. He didn't play very good at all in the second half.
No, there's no excuse. You know why? I was thinking about this because there's no logical explanation for Tony Romo being the highest-rated fourth-quarter quarterback. He does lead a lot of fourth-quarter comebacks, but that's because they're always behind. That's because he helps get them behind in the first 3 quarters. And I'm not saying it's all his fault because I've been on the offensive line. They draft a new offensive lineman every year that's supposed to be great. Tyron Smith from USC, first-round draft pick. Travis Frederick, center from Wisconsin, first-round draft pick on a center. You want to protect Tony Romo, still can't do it because you don't run the ball at all. You've got DeMarco Murray, who apparently they think he's made of glass. Why play him then? Why even have him on the team if you're not ever going to hand him the ball? You're going to keep people on Tony Romo's back all day when in the first half, Des Bryant had 100 yards receiving in the first half. Had just one of the most incredible catches I've ever seen in my life, and then they couldn't throw the ball anymore because everybody's covered. Kansas City figured out, well, let's just drop 7 guys, get pressure with our front 4. You're not going to run the ball, and we'll cover everybody. And that's what happened in the second half. Dallas didn't adjust because I think Jason Garrett is a terrible coach. That's just my opinion. Bill Callahan comes in to call the offensive plays, and he looks just like Jason Garrett. They're throwing the ball on every freaking down. They're never running the ball ever. And when they do, it's just like, let's just run DeMarco Murray into 12 people because our offensive line can't block. Can't you tell I'm a little bit upset about the Cowboys? Long story short, though, Jason, I don't think that they're very good. I think the reason that Tony Romo was such a highly rated quarterback in the fourth quarter is because teams back off and say, all right, well, we're up 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. Why don't you just go ahead and do what you're going to do? We'll let you walk it down the field, and then at the end of the day, we'll win the game. And that's what's happened for Dallas. I think Brad tweeted a stat that there were like exactly 500 under Tony Romo or something like that in the last 15 or 16 years. Dallas is not just the Tony Romo era, but in the last 15 or 16 years, they're almost 500 team for America's team and a team that's supposed to be, they're the most valuable team in the NFL. You would think they could find a way to compete. Jerry Jones, man, you're almost to Al Davis territory in my mind. But anyway, Jason, we'll move on from there. We won't linger on my Cowboys or your Tampa Bay Buccaneers for very long.
Man, boy, my Tampa Bay took another one on the chin yesterday. We were up 1 point and driving down, got our field goal and got our field goal kicker in field goal range. He misses it, and what happens? New Orleans goes down. Tampa was up 1 at that time, and if they would have made that field goal, it would have put them up 4. So they would have had to at least score a touchdown. And then New Orleans just marches right down the field, gets in field goal range, and of course the kicker makes it. We lose by 2. It's just been that year for the Buccaneers this year. And Freeman, man, I think I would almost trade him for any quarterback in the NFL, even counting probably Romo, even though I probably don't want him right now. But I would trade him for almost any quarterback. Heck, I might even take Tim Tebow. But that's where the Buccaneers have weapons. Vincent Jackson's a good wide receiver. They got Mike Williams at wide receiver. They got Doug Martin at running back. We have some offensive weapons, but Josh Freeman is just not getting it done. I'm really disappointed in him. And I thought he would have been playing better this year since he's in a contract year, but he's just not stepping up. He's not doing anything. So I don't know if it's the play calling or if I just don't think he's a good quarterback. They drafted him in the first round a few years ago, and it just hasn't panned out.
Well, you want to look at a good quarterback. Let's switch gears here. Aaron Rodgers, 480 yards and 4 touchdowns yesterday in the Green Bay Packers 38-20 win over the Washington Redskins. Aaron Rodgers is looking like the MVP once again. RG3 still looks to be favoring that knee. I'll just go ahead and say I don't necessarily think they rushed him back, but I think they messed up by not getting him any snaps in the preseason because he was ready to play, medically cleared to play, and now he's having to, in real live action, bullets are flying, he's trying to decide whether or not he trusts that knee. I think I would have probably tried to do that in a preseason game so that he could have those butterflies out. He started really slow, Jason. In the second half, he's had to come back and try his best to bring his team from behind. But when you're down, 24-0 at the half against Green Bay and that high-flying offense, you're done.
Yeah, and you were talking about the preseason, him not getting any plays. That was a big deal about him and what's the third head coach, Washington's head coach?
Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, Shanahan, that's it. I think that's. There was a bunch of argument going on about him not wanting to, or RG3 was wanting to play, but Shanahan was keeping him out of the games, and I think it's kind of translated over to the season, like you're saying. He's leery out there running, and last year he ran a lot, but this year he's kind of scared, and I guess he probably doesn't think that his knee's 100%.
Yeah, it seems to be that's the the issue with him, and he'll get it together. I just hope it's too late for the Washington Redskins because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I have to go with the Cowboys on that in any sort of opportunity that I can. Hey, Peyton Manning looked pretty good again yesterday in the Manning Bowl. The Denver Broncos got a win over the New York Giants, who in 2 games, I think it's 11 turnovers, 6 in one game. He had in the first game. Yesterday, Eli Manning had 4 interceptions, and I believe they had another fumble. No, they just had 4 turnovers. So they've got 10 turnovers in 2 games. Eli Manning throws 4 interceptions yesterday, although one of them was a weird kick ball that was picked off. Peyton was 30 of 43 for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just looking great early on in the season. Denver, I have to give them credit. With San Francisco losing yesterday to Seattle, and we'll talk about that game here in just a minute, Denver's looking really, really good.
Yes, they are. You know, in the Manning Bowl, you said, you know, it's Eli Manning's 0-3 against Peyton Manning now.
Yep.
And I'm sure Peyton just rubs that in his face every single time they talk.
See, I bet it's the opposite.
The Giants, they should be better than what they are. And I know they've won 2 Super Bowls with him at quarterback. It just seems like they have more weapons than what they have, and it's just not getting it to them and utilizing up their potential that they have there.
Yeah, they've got some great receivers, man. They've got a stacked squad of receivers, but their running game has just been terrible. Letting Ahmad Bradshaw walk was a bad deal for the Giants. They hadn't been able to run the ball. 23 yards rushing yesterday on 19 attempts. We'll hit just a couple more things real quickly in the NFL. I want to look at San Francisco, Seattle, and then we're going to Hog Talk right after the break.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peter's Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peter's Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville, online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
Yep, hit that line. We'll have Hog Talk here in just a moment. Thank you for joining us on the Sports Blitz today. It's our last segment of a Monday. It's been a good show. We appreciate Coach Jeff Holt of the Russellville Cyclones joining us earlier on. We appreciate Jason, who's on the line right now, Jason Kilburn, who is going to help me finish out the show. Appreciate Maddie and Emily being over there and being all awesome and producing us up real well. on a Monday here in the Cogswell Motors studios. Thank you for joining us again. Arkansas got a big win, 24-3 over Southern Miss, and we'll look at that here in just a moment. But finishing up the NFL headlines, there are just a couple things that I wanted to point out. One, I talked about Denver being pretty good. Their defense has been impressive. 4 interceptions on Eli Manning, who has just lit up the scoreboard so far as passing goes. He's just been incredible as far as his numbers. They can't run the ball, and that's been their issue. But Denver, I've been very impressed with the offense. Wes Welker, he had 3 drops in the first half on Sunday, but he came back and really turned it on in the second half, got a touchdown in there in Denver, returned a punt for a touchdown. It was Trendon Holiday, who those of you who are Razorback fans will remember with just shudders and tears of terror, what Trendon Holiday did to the Razorbacks back in the day. It seemed like every time he was back there, it was a touchdown for LSU. But then the Eagles, I wanted to look at, they've just been up and down. They lost this week to the San Diego Chargers, who should be 2-0. Houston got them last week. Houston did the exact same thing this week to Tennessee. It was just an incredible comeback. I have to give them credit for that. But Houston's been lucky, and sometimes they say it's better to be lucky than good in their 2 first games. But the Eagles been up and down. Interested to see how they play against the NFC East when some teams get some film on this offense and people continue to put hits on Michael Vick. I wonder how long he's going to be able to last. I wonder how long but the offense in college always found ways to make plays. Now, when they played the great teams, the Oregon teams always came down to earth quite a bit. But when they play teams that aren't that good, aren't that disciplined, they just put a hurting on. And for a long time in the game Sunday, San Diego just didn't have any answers. But at the end of the day, 400 yards and 3 touchdowns from Phillip Rivers was enough to overcome Michael Vick's incredible game last night. And the San Diego Chargers beat the Eagles. So there are a lot of NFL topics that I'm going to be paying attention to. Not my fantasy teams because they've just been completely terrible. But there's a lot of stuff in the NFL. If you want to get with us with anything on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, NFL related, college football related, high school, any sort of sports news that you want to know about, email me, mark@rivervalleyleader.com, or go to facebook.com/sportsblitz, answer the trivia question, answer the poll questions. We're going to have some Clarksville tickets to give away again this week. They are at home. And then we've got some Pottsville tickets, the next home game that we'll give away. So we're looking forward to doing some good things for the upcoming football games locally, but we want you to be involved in the show. And as we bring Jason back in, let's look at the Razorbacks' 24-3 win over Southern Miss. Jason, it wasn't quite what any of us expected, but things sort of went downhill with about 3 minutes and 52 seconds left in the first quarter when Brandon Allen ran that touchdown and then came up lame with a bruised shoulder. You there, Jason?
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. I couldn't hardly hear you there for a second.
Oh, it's good. I was just mentioning Brandon Allen's injury.
Go ahead.
I was just mentioning Brandon Allen's injury.
Okay, yeah. We should know probably here in the next 10 or 15 minutes when Bielema has his normal Monday noon press conference. So we should know the details of it. But I'm hearing that, I've heard anywhere from he's just going to miss 1 game or I've heard he's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks. So it kind of depends on who you're listening to or who thinks they know, what's really going on there. But with Brandon Allen going down, A.J. Derby, stepped in, and he was 4 of 6 passing, but all of his completions were just short, intermediate routes. I think the time that he threw deep, Javonte Hernan on a deep out, it wasn't even close. And, of course, if I'm Bielema, my opinion, if he's out for a significant amount of time, you've got to take the red shirt off of either Austin Allen or Damian Mitchell. One of them has got to come in and step in and play because I don't think A.J. Derby's the answer at quarterback.
No, he most definitely isn't. And that was one thing that was driving me absolutely nuts on Saturday. In the first half, I think in 3 quarters, A.J. Derby threw 6 passes. They just didn't trust him to throw the ball at all. If you don't trust him to pass the ball at all the whole game, what's he doing on the field? What's he doing on the team? If he's going to play quarterback for your team and you can't ask him to throw the ball. Now, for the second quarter, and I was getting upset, I'm not going to lie. I tweeted a couple times, look, if he doesn't throw the ball on this series, and it was just in the one series, I'd had enough. And I said, if he doesn't throw the ball at all in this series, and he just says run, 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 punt, I'm done. He did throw the ball and try to stretch him out a little bit, but I was just getting very, very frustrated with what Bielema was doing as far as making Chaney call run after run after run after run. But then I understood the fact that you go into halftime and you find out how serious this injury is. If this is going to be a big deal, that's going to be a lingering injury for 5, 6, 7 weeks, then you've got to think about bringing Austin Allen in because he's the only logical opportunity to throw the football. A.J. Derby was a walk-on, Jason, and he wasn't somebody that, Arkansas expected to really contribute to anything other than just keeping things steady. In the end of the day, though, Arkansas gets the 24-3 win. They grinded it out. Alex Collins and Jonathan Williams both go over 100 yards. But I'm with you. I've heard that it was just a shoulder sprain or a shoulder bruise. So I'm hoping that it's nothing more than that and that he's able to play this week.
I'm hoping so too. It was just a freak play. He just went into the end zone and he just I guess kind of landed on it wrong. But you can tell when he got up that he was in a lot of pain. But, I'm with you. I hope it's just a bruise or a strain or something, that there's nothing up the throat.
Yeah, that would be really bad for the hopes of Arkansas fans who are just going for 6 wins. I mean, how snake bitten do we have to be as a school where we have to hope for 6 wins and then hope that the quarterback that was going to lead us to a 6-6 regular season is healthy enough to do that? We're not asking for too much, football gods. Why don't you make this happen for us, that Arkansas can stay healthy enough to at least get to 6-6? I was hoping for that. But let's look at the game, though, as far as the guys who actually were able to play. We'll know more about Brandon Allen, and we will let you know about that later on. 16 carries for 116 yards, including a 45-yard touchdown for Jonathan Williams. Alex Collins, probably the story of the day, 25 carries for 115 yards. I said on Friday, and I was dead wrong, that I thought Jonathan Williams would get more carries than Alex Collins because the last 2 games, Alex Collins has got all the carries. Jonathan Williams has got comparable yards, but I didn't figure they would want to continue this with Jonathan Williams getting fewer carries than Alex Collins. But both of these guys played incredibly well early on in the season. I do expect, Jason, for it coming down the SEC slate for Jonathan Williams to get a heavier workload, but both of these guys have been very impressive.
Yeah, they're both good. They're both, Williams runs more with power and Collins runs more with speed. An interesting stat on Alex Collins is he's the first freshman running back in SEC history to have his first 3 career games be over 100 yards. It's the first in NCAA history since 2004, which, do you know who it was in 2004?
Adrian Peterson.
Adrian Peterson. That's pretty company right there. But he's great. He's good. But who's going to get the carries? I don't know. Collins has got all the carries in the first 3 games, or the most of the carries in the first 3 games, but Williams keeps on starting. So there's something that he sees in Jonathan Williams, Bielema sees in Jonathan Williams, to keep him out on the field, to keep him starting. He knows, I guess, that Collins is maybe the more elusive back, maybe more of the home run hitter, even though we have a 75-yarder and a 45-yarder to put him in there. So I really don't know who's going to get the more carries or who's going to be starting more, but I think Williams is averaging like 7.5 yards in attempt or something like that. Something crazy, something really high for a running back.
Yeah, he's averaging 7.7 yards a rush. I didn't even notice that. They are first and second in the SEC in rushing. Alex Collins is number 1 in the SEC in rushing, and Jonathan Williams is number 2. But like you mentioned, it's been the opposite, though, of what I expected. I expected Alex Collins to be the home run hitter who was the Felix Jones to Jonathan Williams McFadden as far as getting the carries, and McFadden would hit the home run. There's no question about that. But Felix Jones would be the guy who would come in there and pop one off for 50 yards, and you're just like, what? He got 1 carry, and it was a touchdown. And I thought that would be that would be Alex Collins, and then Jonathan Williams would do the pounding. Well, so far, it's been the exact opposite. Jonathan Williams has come in and busted off long runs. Alex Collins he's done well himself. 115 yards is no slouch, but he's been the guy who's been getting the tough yards, and then the occasional 15, 20-yard run. His long on Saturday was 23 yards. But I see that sort of changing as the SEC schedule comes along. They're not going to have so many of these teams, and there's not going to be very many more, that they're going to be able to run the ball with this much success against, in my opinion. Rutgers, they'll probably be able to run the ball all right against. Texas A&M, not going to be able to run the ball that well against them. Alabama, you might as well just forget about it. Florida, South Carolina, not going to happen. You're not going to run the ball for near the yardage that you have so far. But Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, you've got a shot. LSU, you're not going to run the ball that well against them. Things are going to change up a little bit in the next few weeks.
I hope they do because, people are just going to load the ball against us. I think this weekend's game is going to be a big game to see how our offense, if Chaney's really been holding back the offense, or if we're really going to be this vanilla, this year, or what. Because, the first game we threw the tight ends a lot. I think Hunter Henry had 5 catches, and I think Sprinkle had 2 catches. And since then, I don't know if the tight ends has caught a ball, and it's mostly been these little dump-off passes to the running backs and then trying to hit either Herndon or Horton had a couple catches this last game. So I'm anxious to see how the offense is when they play Rutgers on Saturday.
Yeah, Arkansas had 6 receptions for 69 yards on Saturday. Notice I didn't say a specific receiver had 6 receptions for 69 yards. Arkansas, as a team, 6 catches, 69 yards, 2 for Horton, 2 for Herndon, 2 for Small. And that's it, 25, 22, and 22. And that's just not going to cut it against a good team. When they can stack the box with 9, 10 guys, which Southern Miss did, 8, 9 guys in the box, you're not going to be able to do that against the SEC because they will kill you. They will murder your running backs, and you can't just put your guys in that position every single down. So we'll preview the Rutgers game. Rutgers is going to be in trouble as well if their quarterback's not playing. Nova went out with a concussion on Saturday, so they don't know if he's going to make the team or make the trip. Well, I say trip, make the game Saturday. They're in Piscataway, but that would be a huge go for Arkansas if Arkansas got Brandon Allen back and Nova was out for Rutgers. So, Jason, that's all the time we've got for today. We'll be back on Wednesday to do some more. Appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate you having me on, man.
Not a problem. It's Jason Kilbert. Does a good job helping us out talking Hogs. We'll be back on Wednesday to preview the Rutgers game. Just found out across the wire that the A&M game is going to be a 6 o'clock kick in Fayetteville. It's going to be fun, but we've got plenty more to talk about on Wednesday. That's all the time we have for today. For Jason and Maddie and even Emily, I'm Mark. We'll see you at 11 o'clock on Wednesday.